This is Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, you might remember that last week on the show, we were joined by Amani Mukherjee, CEO of Pernod Ricard North America. It's the huge liqueur company that owns Beefeater, Jameson, Malibu, and more. They also recently acquired Screwball Whiskey. It's a company that makes peanut butter whiskey, and you might be scratching your head saying, who wants to drink peanut butter whiskey? Well, it turns out a lot of people do. Mukherjee told us that the U.S. consumer absolutely loves flavored whiskey. And flavored whiskey is our next guest specialty. Amani Macaulay is the co-founder of Duke and Dame. It's a spirits company that makes salted caramel flavored whiskey. Amani, good to have you back with us.
Good evening. Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I should note you came bearing gifts, which we'll get to in just a minute. But before we do, and we got plenty of time with you, so we're really lucky. Give us an idea of your journey, because we were talking a little earlier. You survived the financial crisis, worked on Wall Street, found yourself in Australia. Now you're distilling salted caramel whiskey in Florida. How did you get there?
You know, I was in finance here in New York, and you get to a certain point where you just, you have to really think about what that next adventure is going to be, and I knew finance had kind of run its course. And I just needed to work different parts of my brain, needed a different challenge. I wanted to go build something. And so I left. I had no plans when I left. I took some time off just to kind of decompress.
How many years were you on Wall Street?
11 years.
Okay.
11 years. So, I did my time.
Sorry, I interrupted. No plans.
No plans. Took some time just to kind of decompress, traveled a little bit. And I ended up in Miami, hanging out with a buddy of mine, Chima Burey, who fast forward became my business partner and co-founder of Duke and Dame. But, we having one of those conversations at a bar, like, hey, man, what are you going to do next? And I'm like, not sure. I'm going to take my time and figure it out. And he says, hey, I had this crazy idea a few years ago about making a whiskey that kind of tastes like Sugar Daddy or like Werther's Original. And I go, that's interesting. Not thinking anything of it, right? It's just drink buddy talk, right?
Yeah.
And but I had time. I didn't have a job, and started looking into it. And I think maybe a week or two later, we went to a distillery. We spent 4 hours at this distillery, just asking every question under the sun, learning about the process of whiskey making, etc. And we walked out of that building that day, looked at each other like, maybe this isn't as impossible as we might have thought a week or two ago. And from there, we just kind of jumped into it, started doing more research. We're drinking buddies, so we drank a lot.
You had to sample the product.
Right, and we kind of knew what we liked. But we also, one thing we noticed about the flavored whiskey space was that a lot of the offerings, and it was really starting to become a category back then too. A lot of the offerings, a lot of consumers thought they were overly sweet, syrupy, some had an artificial aftertaste to them. They weren't really, you don't come home after a long day at work and want to curl up by the fireplace with a,
Sugar Daddy.
Right. Right. And so we thought, well, wait a minute, why do you have to give up quality just because you want a little flavor in your whiskey, right? Like, why can't you have a whiskey that gives you the same complexity and balance you would find in a higher end bourbon or scotch? And why can't you have a whiskey that actually makes you smile when you drink it? Most of the time you take a shot of any spirit, you kind of do that little whiskey face or cringe. But that was really the questions. Those were really the questions we asked ourselves, and we set out to create Duke and Dame to answer those questions.
One thing that is so interesting to me about your journey is the point that you make that you had the headspace to think about it. I mean, not a lot of people have the luxury of that view, and it's great that you recognize that that's part of the process. But one for yourself, and the thing I'm really interested in is, what was the thing that made you think this is it? Because a lot of people have a lot of drinking buddies that have a lot of conversations in bars, and those ideas are better left in a bar.
That's a great question. I mean, that point came probably 2.5 months later. So I left Miami and came back to New York. And at that point, it was still this crazy idea my good buddy had. And I was exploring other opportunities, but at the same time, we were prototyping. So we had our kitchens, Chima in Miami, me in New York, kind of set up like chemistry labs. We're experimenting with different types of whiskeys, different types of flavors. We're calling each other every other day, going through notes like try 1 ml of this, try 1 ml of that. Let's try more vanilla. Let's try more. Just trying different mixes and formulas. And finally, we hit one where we both were like, "Oh wow, this is it."
Is it a secret?
Is what a secret?
The formula?
Of course, it's a secret.
Can you tell us? Can you tell us just like a few of the ingredients in it?
Well, I mean, it's. I can tell you the ingredients in it.
Okay.
It's 100% corn whiskey base. It
Okay.
includes a 2-year aged bourbon, and it's 100% natural caramel flavor and aroma. And then we add a dash of salt.
And that's it.
That's it. It's very simple. 100% natural, nothing artificial at all.
Do you do the distilling too?
No, so we don't own the distillery. We work with a distillery partner.
Where's that distillery? Is
In
that
Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
And they know, they know how to make our formula, know how to make our whiskey, and it's a great product. But just getting back to that story,
Yeah.
so we have this prototype. I think we called it at the time codename Sugar Daddy. Because of the Sugar Daddy candies, right? The caramel candies. And so, we took old whiskey bottles, scraped off the labels, made batches, and took them around to our friends and family. And I think at that point, we were still kind of playing around, but the responses we received were just amazing. And we get in the same response in Florida and Miami, and it blew us away. It's like, wow, you made that? This is awesome, dude. You have to make this. You have to sell this. And we get on the phone like, dude, are you hearing what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
He's like, man, it's incredible. What do you think we should do? What do you want to do? And we were like, a little pause, and we said, you know what? Screw it, let's do it.
I love it. I love
and
it.
2 weeks later, I moved to Miami, and we started the business. So
That's the voice of Amani Macaulay. He's the co-founder of Duke and Dame. He's with us right now in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to continue our chat with Amani and have a sample not just of the whiskey, but also of a cocktail, a sangria that he brought. You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek, and this is Bloomberg.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
It is Bloomberg Businessweek. Tim Stenovec and Jennifer Ryan in for Carol Massar this afternoon. Very pleased to have back with us. Before we heard from Charlie, we were speaking to him, and we're going to continue our conversation now. Amani Macaulay is co-founder of Duke and Dame. He's with us in the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. They make a salted caramel flavored whiskey, and we got some in our hands right now. So tell us a little bit about what we're going to be sampling right now.
yeah, we'd love to have you try it. So we created Duke and Dame really to kind of bridge that gap between your hardcore whiskey enthusiast on one end of the spectrum and maybe your whiskey haters or whiskey newcomers on the other end. We wanted a whiskey that could be attractive and appealing to both. So what you're going to notice in your first sip, you're getting that beautiful aroma, right?
I'm smelling, it smells like a sugar daddy.
Yes,
Yeah.
or Werther's Original,
Yeah.
right? And so that really brings in folks who may not like whiskey, maybe turned off by whiskey. And you take that first sip, you get in the caramel notes, maybe some vanilla, maybe some butterscotch. And what you notice, it's very smooth. And what's missing? That harsh whiskey burn.
Yeah, it's very, very smooth. So with a lot of whiskey, if you're not used to it and you don't like it, all you feel is the burn, and then all you say is no.
But you know what's nice? It's not sweet. Like I
It is
hear
not
about
cloying.
something
It's
like
not
this.
cloying. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I imagine it's going to be like sweet like a Starbucks drink or
Duke
something.
and Dame
Not
only
like-
has 1 gram of sugar per serving.
So it does have sugar. But
it's flavored, yes, for sure.
Okay.
But it's 1 gram of sugar per serving. It's 100% natural. Now, in your second sip, that's where the magic happens. Now the bourbon notes become more pronounced. So you should start getting more hints of oak, maybe some spice on the back end. So you get this nice layered taste profile that's pretty unique.
It is good.
It's really nice to just sip it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you think caramel whiskey, it sounds like it's like an alcohol pop or
Right.
something. You just knock it back, and it's like that's not the experience that you want to be having.
This
at
is
this point.
definitely an elevated flavored whiskey drinking experience. So you can sip it neat as you are now. Imagine sipping it on the rocks, and people love it just like that. But what I love about Duke and Dame is how versatile it is. It blends well with everything. All your traditional whiskey cocktails, your old fashions, your whiskey sours, and then things you might not even think about, like a Duke and Dame mojito, for example. Or we make a French 75.
A mojito is supposed to have rum.
Well, no, we replaced the rum with Duke and Dame.
Okay.
It blends well with everything.
Interesting.
So what we have here is a caramel apple sangria. Like, who would put a caramel whiskey in sangria? Well, we do.
You've probably had your share of sangria, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Spanish husband. I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
So this is 2 parts Duke and Dame, 3 parts Pinot Grigio, and 5 parts apple cider. Garnish it with some chopped apple slices.
It tastes dangerous.
Yes.
Meaning you could drink an entire glass of this
Listen,
and not know you're drinking alcohol.
It's the holiday season.
That is something else.
You're going to be having friends and family over.
They're not
going to
let me on the subway after drinking this.
You mix up a quick batch of the caramel apple sangria. It's easy to make, and people love it.
That is good.
So I said earlier on the show, I am not doing any cooking for Thanksgiving. I think I will be making this.
So before we let you go, we got about a minute left. Is this salted caramel whiskey the only product you have out right
Yes,
now?
right now that's the only SKU. You know, we really wanted to build the brand first, get people, accustomed to Duke and Dame the brand, Duke and Dame the whiskey.
What's in the
loving
pipeline?
it. And then, well, we're in the lab.
Okay.
We don't plan on introducing 20 different flavors, right? We really want to be thoughtful around, in the same way that the caramel kind of gives you that nostalgic feeling. It takes you back to the Werther's original in your grandma's purse, right? We want to make sure that everything we create kind of gives you that, brings you back the home feeling, right? So we're working on that. And, right now, all the rage are the ready-to-drink cocktails,
Yeah.
the RTDs.
Oh,
Yeah.
And as you can see, Duke and Dame makes some amazing cocktails. So,
Well-
we might develop 1 or 2 of those.
Well, when you do, and even before that, come back and visit us one more time.
love
We
it.
love it
Please
when
do.
you join us. Amani Macaulay is the co-founder of Duke and Dame, with us in the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Also, a huge thank you to Jennifer Ryan on the Equality team for stepping into Carol's shoes this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for letting me on.